Hey everyone, this is David at Finish Line Factory. Welcome back to the channel. If you've been following along, this is my 2002 Turbo Miata. We just finished dropping in the engine, and we're working on a couple more things. Obviously the rear end of the car is still out right now, the whole rear end. Well, we gotta take out the control arms pretty soon. I'm still waiting on the differential. That should, the modifications to the differential housing have been completed, and I just gotta go pick that up at the machine shop in a little bit. And I then have to put the differential carrier onto the differential and load the differential up into the car. While all that's apart, I've also taken the time to remove my spindles, and I'm having new wheel bearings and wheel hubs, upgraded wheel hubs pressed in. So that's going to take a little bit of time. And while that's down, while all that's apart, I've decided I'm going to start working on my control arms. So the bushings of my control arms are all dilapidated, and I actually have one here from the spindle. Let me go grab that. Oop, we're good. So here, this is one of my control arm bushings. It's all cracked and dilapidated. I was able to push this out by hand, and I shouldn't be able to do that. They should be pressed in and really, really good. So over time, these things tend to degrade. They tend to shrink, and that's why I was able to push it out by hand instead of requiring a press to get it out. As these deteriorate, the alignment of your car changes as you drive. So instead of the suspension working as intended, working as designed, these allow the control arms to flex a little bit more than they were originally designed to. As you go through turns and as you're doing stuff, your alignment changes just a little bit. And when that happens, well, you're not getting the best performance. The suspension isn't working as designed. So I have here a brand new set of suspension bushings. This is the rear set. I have the front set and other parts over there. Got a complete set. And these are made of polyurethane. I got the black ones. The black ones have graphite in it, and these help to lubricate. The problem with these often is that they tend to squeak and squeal as the suspension moves, but with the black ones, they're self-lubricating, so that shouldn't be a problem. In addition, Protein also supplies you with some Teflon grease, so that should be pretty good. So all I gotta do now is remove the control arms from the rear of the car and get to it. All right, so what I've got here, we've got the poly bushings. These are new spindles. Well, these are the same spindles, but I have put on updated parts. Need to get this off a little more. There we go. So I have pressed in new wheel bearings, courtesy of Side Mission. Thank you guys. New wheel seals at the back, new seals here. And these are brand new MR2 wheel hubs. So these are a huge upgrade over the factory Miata ones. The factory Miata ones are kind of weak and tend to break, especially if you're putting in a lot more power and a lot more grip. So these are much thicker. They have a better design to them, and it's a much better radius on the back, so the forces are distributed more evenly. I'm sticking with these stock studs because I don't really plan on running spacers or anything like that, so I should be good to go there. And yeah, so I'm going to push in these bushings. I got to use the Teflon grease here from Protein and get this started. Got the bushings done on a couple of the control arms, well, one of the control arms and the knuckle. I'm still waiting to get the bushings pressed out of the other control arms. But while I'm waiting on the machine shop to do that, I can tell you guys about this. So this is my differential and the differential carrier / back cover. And I've had this refreshed. It's got new differential bushings. These are from the, these are the Mazda Speed competition bushings. So these are 40% stiffer than stock without a significant increase in NVH. In addition, I also had the differential reinforced. So there's a small notch right here. You can't really see it. Well, you can kind of see it. There's a small notch right here, and this is designed to break, right? So if you get into an accident, if something happens, the whole differential doesn't become this solid piece that, you know, messes up the car. It's designed to break, to protect the drivetrain, and to protect the occupants in the event of a crash or if something crazy happens. It's kind of like a mechanical fuse, if you want to call it that. The problem is that if you're making a lot of power, which we intend to do with that thing right there, it tends to break on its own. So I got these reinforcement plates here. I got one here and one here. I got these from MiataCage.com, had them welded up over at Side Mission, and these are ready to go. So all I've got to do now is put silicone sealant on the differential and put this up into the car. I don't think I'm going to put it into the car right away, maybe a little bit later, but that's what I'm going to take care of right now. Alright, so the differential is ready to drop in, or well, put up into the car. I put first I gotta let the silicone dry, so I put the silicone all the way around. You gotta let it seal, so you gotta let it sit for 24 hours, so I'll come in tomorrow and I'll tighten down the bolts and I'll drop this into the car. Right now all the bolts are finger tight, that's how you're supposed to do it. Finger tight for 24 hours, let the RTV, let the sealant bond to the parts, and then tighten them back up. If you don't do that, then what's going to happen is all the RTV is just going to squish out all that silicone sealant. So I'm going to leave this here for 24 hours. By tomorrow, I should also have the other control arms so I can get those bushings pressed in and work on getting all this back into the car. Alright, so I have 3 out of 4 control arms done, and here's why I'm 3 out of 4. I had to wait a couple of days. So this is what a control arm, the upper control arm should look like, and this is what my upper control arm looks like. You see how it's bent? So you see, what had happened was, I was using my friend's hydraulic press to press the bushings out, which you're actually not even supposed to do. You're supposed to use like a ball joint press or whatever. So you see, I got it like halfway out, and then it started bending the control arm. And it turns out that I had set it up in the control arm. I had set it up in the press improperly. And so instead of setting it up so that it's braced on the bottom of the bushing, like right here, I set it up so that it was braced on the bottom bushing like that. And so at first I got it like halfway out. I'm like, okay, this is working. I know what I'm doing. And then it started bending the control arm itself because it started bottoming out. You can kind of see it right there. See, it started... it's not focusing. Come on. Yes. The focus on this thing sucks. Well, it doesn't suck. It just doesn't focus on what I want it to. But yeah, like it started bottoming out on the thing here because the tool that I was using was too wide for the bushing, and I screwed up. So that means I had to buy a new control arm. Well, a used control arm. Got it from Ben's used Miata parts on Facebook. And now I'm good to go. I pushed the bushings out of this one properly. I used the right tools, which actually just was a hammer. You can literally just use like a hammer and a metal rod and just literally just hammer the bushing out. Like you really... I'm stupid. But yeah, I'm gonna get this cleaned up and put the poly bushings in it, and then I'm gonna put the control arms into the car. While I was waiting for this to come in, it took a couple of days. I did get the differential into the car and bolted up. Still got to do the PPF and the drive shaft, but you know, a little bit of progress at a time. So let's get the bushings into this control arm and then get the control arms into the car. Alright, so you're probably wondering why I sanded that control arm and now I'm painting it white. Well, the control arm had a bit of surface rust on it, a little more than I was comfortable with. So I figured, hey, you know what? It might be a good idea to sand this and repaint it. Otherwise, it's going to continue to rust, and at some point, maybe years down the road, that control arm could fail from the rust, and then I crash my very, very nice Miata that I spent a lot of money and a lot of time working on. So I figured, you know, a little bit of effort now will save me a big problem later in the future. So what I did was I sanded the parts of the control arm that had rust on it, just those parts because the rest of the paint looked pretty good. Then I hit it with etching primer. That's going to prevent it from rusting any further. Then I was going to paint it black, but then the black spray paint can that I had was broken. It didn't have a clean spray pattern. It was just kind of splattering all over the place. So I threw that can out, and I happened to have a can of white paint rolling around. So control arm's white now. Cool. All right, guys, good news. A couple days have passed, and we have bolts. So these are the brand new control arm bolts that I bought. Right here. All kinds of good stuff. Got the big bolt. Might have to replace that one. But we got the big bolts. We got all kinds of, we got the camber bolts. We got the camber washers. I don't even have to replace these, but I got them anyway. I'm replacing all of the control arm bolts because these are items that they don't really wear out, but over time, 20 years of, bumps and driving around and dealing with stresses, they may develop small stress cracks over time. And, if you already have the control arms off and you're doing the bushings, it just makes sense to replace it, especially since, you're upgrading, your car's going to be handling more power now, it's going to be handling more grip. And the last thing I would want is to crash this beautiful, beautiful Miata, ruin Eric's beautiful, beautiful wrap job on this car, and crash and die in a fiery death, all because I wanted to be cheap and reuse a control arm bolt. Now, these were not cheap. This bolt alone is like $15. I mean, it's huge. But even the smaller bolts are like $8. Like the camber bolts and these. This is like $8, right? And I lost my focus. Why are you not focusing? Okay, now you're back. All right, we're back. And the total sum of all these bolts was $165, which, sounds like a lot of money, and it kind of is, but, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, $165 to this car is like nothing. Like, the turbo alone was like $1,000. The engine is like $3,000. Last thing I would want is, crash because I wanted to save $165. In addition, my rear sway bar end links those were seized and destroyed and rusted. So I have thrown them out, and I have bought brand new Flying Miata sway bar end links. These were about $60 for the pair each, I think. I went with the Flying Miata ones because they have a ball joint style connection to them. And the reason why I like that better is because the other brands of control arm links, like for example, there's the Heim joint ones, right? Over time, those will start making noise, and I don't want to deal with all that. In addition, the Heim joints may have a limited range of motion and may adversely impact performance. And I didn't really like the poly ones because they look kind of weak and likely to break, so I didn't want to go with those. But the Flying Miata ones, they are very, very similar to the OEM design, and they look pretty good. So I have a new set for the front and rear. My plan for the sway bars, once I start doing the suspension, I'm going to get a Racing Beat sway bar for the front and leave the stock sway bar in the rear. That'll help, help control oversteer. Most people, they kind of they don't even really touch on rear-wheel drive cars. A lot of people don't really touch the rear sway bar, so it's mostly the front sway bar that's people focus on. So now that I have my control arm bolts, now that I have my sway bar end links, I believe I can continue and put the control arms and everything back into the car. Alright, take a look at this. Look at that, control arms are done. Everything's back in the car. Yeah. So, look at that, we got the one white control arm. So this side also has a new axle in it. So that's got a new axle. I'll do the coilovers later. I just wanted to get this done. Still need to hook up the power plant frame and the drive shaft under the car. There's a couple changes I want to make to the exhaust. Basically, I'm just adding an EGT sensor so that I can monitor the exhaust gas temperature. I don't know if it may have caused any issues, but it's definitely good to know your EGT, especially if you're pushing, this much power. Good progress on the car. Obviously, this did all happen in one day. I just kind of did this over several days, which is why you see me wearing a different shirt each day. You can tell when it shifts to a different day. Power plant frame and the drive shaft I'm going to handle off camera. Exhaust I'm going to handle off camera. I'm still waiting on the speed sensor. I ordered a new speed sensor for the 3.6 differential. Unfortunately, that has somehow gotten lost in the mail. I accidentally put my buddy's shop's address, and he moved from that shop to a different shop, so I was supposed to get forwarded to his shop. and everything's kind of up in the air. So it was supposedly delivered a week ago, and I haven't seen it. So whatever. Whenever it comes in, I'll slap it into the transmission. We'll be good to go. So I'm gonna end this video here. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to check out finishlinefactory.com. If you own a shop, check out finishlinefactory.com. Scroll to the bottom of the webpage, or check the link in the description below. You can sign up there for a wholesale account if you own a shop or whatever. What else? And yeah, be sure to like and subscribe. So catch you guys later. See ya. Bye.